feels so good to be back here today, and thank you for the balmy hot weather. But it is wonderful to be here, and we've been here so many times, Iowa. We love it. It's a place that's very important to us and the family, and it's a place that the president took very good care of. You remember? Do you miss Trump yet or not? He knew what to do. He looked out for the farmers in Iowa. He made ethanol affordable. There were a record number of jobs in the first quarter, 22,000, that President Trump was able to get in the first part of his administration. Real results, and that's because we have a president that knows what it means to put America first, not foreign interests at the expense of the United States. Energy independence, manufacturing, infrastructure, everything proved to be the right formula for a robust and vibrant and thriving economy enjoyed by all Americans. And one of the best things about President Trump is he doesn't leave you behind. He comes to Iowa and he comes again and he remembers and he never forgets. And Iowa is a place that's been very good to us, to the family, and to the president. And let's be honest, you guys are the most important place in the country right now, right? You're going to set the message and the tone for the rest of the country about who is going to be the nominee for President of the United States for the Republican America First MAGA party, right? It's each and every one of you that are going to deliver this tremendous victory by getting your friends, your family members, everybody out there. If you got to carry somebody on piggyback on your back, you got to do it. We've got to get all the people out there to support President Trump. He is the one and only true choice that can get this country back on track. God knows it's not Joe Biden. God knows it's not Biden and Harris. We need to give them a pink slip, okay? It's over. And tonight is going to be the first step for a decisive victory for Trump to be the nominee so he can go head to head in the general election and 100% officially, permanently retire Biden and Harris. Doesn't that sound good? Kind of like when we gave Nancy Pelosi a pink slip too, right? Bye, Felicia. We don't need any more of that. We need a true, strong commander-in-chief in the Oval Office, someone who respects the hard-working men and women of this country, someone who respects law enforcement, the military, the veterans, someone who is going to be a leader and stop the nonsense at the border. What is happening in this country right now is almost unfathomable. And this is exactly who did it. It's Biden and Harris and their failed policies and Mayorkas. And it is an absolute shame because they have threatened the national security and the sovereignty of this country with their reckless policies that do not put America first. We need to have that strong national security. We need to secure the border. We need to get jobs going and get this country back on track. The good news is, in less than a year, we will be able to do it. And the more important news is, it starts right here tonight in Iowa. How about that? That's right. And a president that loves the flag, right? We stand for the flag. We kneel in church. This president knows what it means to make sure that families are able to decide for themselves how to educate their children. He is against the indoctrination that we see from the poisonous left. This is someone who will stand up for our children, will do the right thing and make sure that they are protected and make sure that it's their parents, not educators or teachers trying to tell them they have to change their gender or what they need to do or whether or not they need to wear certain clothes or identify as a cat in a litter box. That's what's happening from the left. You're absolutely right. And this president was the absolute best, as you know, in terms of being so strong and a supporter and really valuing and appreciating the sanctity of life, giving us great Supreme Court justices, and he cannot wait to get back in and get to work for you. So we have to make sure that we get out there because we won't recognize this country if we don't win this election, and that's why it starts right here in Iowa tonight. And we need a commanding victory, a decisive victory, because the rest of these people need to go back to whatever their day jobs were and get out of Trump's way because he's ready to win and crush it, right? You know how he is. You know how he is. So it's fantastic, and I got a little special guest here. I don't know if you recognize this guy, but yeah, he's kind of shy, but nobody works harder for his father than he does. He's absolutely the MAGA tip of the spear and fearless out there. He makes all the liberal heads explode, okay? And it's very fun to watch, and he couldn't wait to come here. And we had a little layover, about 3 hours in North Carolina, but we were determined to get here so that we could talk to you guys and to say thank you, and God bless your families, and we appreciate your support for the president. Let's give Donald Trump Jr. a nice round of applause.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, guys. How's it going tonight? Everyone doing well? All right. I apologize. I know this was supposed to be like 3 hours ago, but let's just say this weather has made travel a little bit difficult, okay? So it was a little different. We got delayed in Charlotte, the airplane there, but we made a lot of friends on the airplane here who all seem to be ready to caucus for Donald Trump tonight. So what we got to do, guys, and you see what they're doing, right? We got to make sure all of our friends show up. And I know this is soon, so even if it looks like you're not paying attention to me, get on the phone right now and text your friends. Let them know. You can even whisper if you want to call them. Let them know, because I see exactly what's happening right now. They're trying desperately to suppress the vote by saying you have it in the bag, right? But you've seen these games, right? Whatever it is happened over the last 48 hours, or 2016, what was it, the email that Ben Carson dropped out of the race and he'd love you to endorse Ted Cruz. They're always doing something, right? There's always a scheme, and that includes our side, because at this point in time, we understand it's actually the DC elite versus Trump. You see that from the Republicans involved. You see that from the billionaire donors disappearing from Ron DeSantis' campaign because they realize he doesn't have it. It took about 3 seconds with him and a mic. You realize, maybe it's not that, but no, you can do a lot with thousands of paid influencers and stuff like that, and they clip a 10-second thing, and they made him look like this great hero. I go, don't worry, guys. They go, no, Don, aren't you worried? For like the last year, it started off about a year ago when he went on the longest book tour in the history of book tours, right? It was like 3 months worth of book tours. I have 2 #1 bestsellers. I know what a book tour is like. It's usually like 7 days at most. This was the longest one ever. It led into a presidential race. Florida could be flooded, or tornadoes, or people could have no electricity, and he'd be an absentee governor, right? And they talk about his commitment to what he says, and, he tells Tucker Carlson he's very against the war, almost like Trump, against the war in Ukraine and getting us into yet another never-ending conflict. And then he gets the call from a billionaire donor who says, Ron, dance, monkey, dance. They crank that thing, and he changes his tune within 3 minutes. And you think that's going to be any different in D.C.? Guys, it's going to get so much worse, right? There's difference between local politics, and once you get to that level, it's not even close. And so we've seen that. And again, the guy's, you should be worried, Don. It's like, again, give him the mic for more than a few minutes, and you'll see those problems. It's why he has to have 3 or 4 surrogates with him at each and every one of the events, because he can't do it on his own. Listen, I don't know. I will leave it to a show of hands. Who here thinks it's acceptable for men to be wearing high heels while running for the Republican nomination for the President of the United States? Anyone? Not a fan of that, right? And by the way, no one cares if he's short. No one cares. No one cares if you're short. You know what you care? That you're so insecure about it that you have to overcompensate. That's the kind of crap that gets us into wars, right? It's that kind of insecurity that you get pushed into doing stuff that's probably not right for the will of the people. And that's what we see from so many of the rhinos in Washington, D.C. right now, right? Nikki Haley, she's never met a war she didn't want to be in. I know, it's great. We would be fighting like a 30-front war, right? We've given $150 billion to Ukraine with zero accountability. We don't even know where the weapons are. Eventually, they'll be used against us, like all the weapons we give to, ridiculous regimes that are out of control. Not a problem, right? Get another war there. You got the stuff going on down in Venezuela, between Guyana and Venezuela. Minor stuff going on in the Middle East with Israel. It's never going to end. And now, we have missiles striking U.S. ships. Because you know what bullies understand? Weakness. They prey on weakness. It's the nature of predation. It's a story as old as time and nature. When they see a bumbling moron as the leader of the free world, we got to put that in quotes because, I mean, a guy that probably struggles to tie his shoes probably shouldn't be called a leader, but it doesn't matter. That's the nature of DC, right? The experts are still experts even if they don't get anything right in half a century. You know? Remember all the commentary about North Korea at the time and, oh, Trump is doing it, he's doing it all wrong. And I'm curious, fine. I'll listen to you. Why? Well, because I was the leader of the delegation dealing with the issues in North Korea for the last 37 years, and we believe, well, did you ever meet with the guy? Well, no, I couldn't do that. Well, why is he wrong and you're right? You got nothing done in 37 years. Well, because we're experts. Oh, wonderful. You know, Anthony Fauci was an expert, and everyone's an expert. No one actually delivers for America, right? They just fail, continue to fail. You know, Kamala Harris is an expert, and she'll talk about, you know, use one word over and over 15 times in a sentence. The nature of love is love, because love is love, and without love, there is no love. Love. It's like, what's going on here? No, it's like a clown show, right? I mean, you know, what was it, Shane Gillis with the Roomba joke about, you know, Joe Biden, but like, he is. I mean, think about it, like, it's not that hard. Like, I walk down those stairs, like if I want to leave, maybe I'll go back up them, maybe I'll say hi to some people. He could be here talking to you. There's like literally a crowd of 4 or 5 people. Massive crowd for Joe Biden, 4 or 5 people. And he'll start talking, and then whatever they gave him to, you know, make him appear semi-lucent for like, you know, a couple seconds, like wears off, and then he's like, you know, walking into the wall. I got called out on it. I go, he has no idea where he is. He's trying to shake hands to a crowd that doesn't exist. And I think it was Facebook. One of them fact-checked me. No. He was pointing to a crowd with an open hand. But the crowd was there, and he's pointing that way. Like, it doesn't check out. Like everything else doesn't check out, right? No, but again, multiple front war, and our Secretary of Defense, you know, I hope he feels better, but like, you can't just abandon your post while you're at the hospital and not tell the administration. And then you're hearing about secret coups because they've understood that they can get away with this, and the military-industrial complex, who wants to keep us in the never-ending wars, doesn't believe in sort of civilian leadership, probably our Constitution, you know, because they want to get on a board of Raytheon, so we got to keep on the wars, right? If we don't sell missiles and then use them, how are we going to get on the board of Raytheon? That's the retirement plan, and it never ends. As I said, $150 billion for Ukraine's border, exactly 0 for our own. The Republicans now signing off a bill, oh, well, we'll give 5,000 people a day just permanent status, and we'll give everyone that ever came in here work visas. You know what that does? To hardworking Americans, to people whose schools are failing their children miserably, whose infrastructure, like, let's call it, sucks at best, whose medical infrastructure is a disaster, well, you'll have the privilege of paying not just for yourselves and your children and your grandchildren, but theirs. Because there's a reason they don't want to let, like, nuclear physicists into the country, right? They're letting people who will, in many cases, likely never, ever contribute to the system. Because when your policies are failing your people, you got to make sure you dilute those people with people who will vote for you in perpetuity because they are dependents. You don't get to put those dependents on your tax returns when you file them in April. You just get to keep paying forever. It doesn't work, but they don't care. Like so many things, they continue to fail, and it doesn't matter, and no one holds them accountable. We talk about, I mean, the stuff I see on a daily basis now, it's literally mind-blowing, right? You talk the failed Afghan withdrawal. And, you know, our Secretary of State, because the adults are back in charge, right? The adults are so back in charge, they don't know where the Secretary of Defense is. They put in a lady who was on vacation in Puerto Rico to deal with defense. No, she didn't even bother to come home because, like, why bother working? It's sort of like Pete Buttigieg, our transportation secretary, who knows nothing about transportation, couldn't be bothered to go to East Palestine. You know, our planes are falling out of the air and doors are falling off of them, you know, and we hire people at the FAA who have severe, mental and psychological issues. That's their Diversity, equity, inclusion. Like when I'm flying at 36,000 feet, I just want like a competent pilot, not the diversity hire, not someone with severe psychological issues. I don't know. That's just me. Because I'm not an imbecile. But they act like we are. Right? The Secretary of Defense, after the Afghan withdrawal, he was, and I quote, in front of Congress, shocked and dismayed that the Taliban, who we've been at war with for 20 years, so, you'd think we'd know a little something about them. They're, these woke generals, they're not so good at winning wars, they're great at staying in them. Not so great at winning them, but still, we should probably have a decent understanding of our enemy after 20 years. And our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, was, and I quote, shocked and dismayed that the Taliban did not install a more, and I quote, diverse and inclusive government in Afghanistan. See, but you're cringing, and you didn't even know that. Because our media won't tell us that, right? It's an obvious cringe. It's freaking ridiculous. Like they think they were going to put like a trans coalition in the Taliban government to make sure that like no, but no, it's okay. Laugh with me because it is funny and sometimes the humor delivers the message, but we also got to remember we can't just get lost in the humor. We have to understand that these are the people that are making trillion-dollar decisions for us. These are the people deciding if our kids go to war. They have no business running a preschool, but they're running a multi-trillion-dollar economy. They're running the U.S. military, and they're imbeciles. But we keep doing that because, guess what? They take care of themselves. The Democrats and the rhinos in Washington, D.C. are almost the same. You see what they're giving the Democrats, on the border bills and everything else that's going on. We just keep racking up the debt. It doesn't really matter. Let's extend it forever because they're getting rolled. Because, it's an easy existence to be a rhino in Washington, D.C. If you roll over, if you give up, if you just die every time when it actually matters, hey, man, they'll let you be conservative like 65, 70% of the time. You don't do that. It's just, that's a big one. No, you better fold. And if you do, they leave you alone. I understand there's a consequence to being a conservative. I understand there's a far greater consequence to being a vocal conservative, and much more so if you support Trump. I know this because unlike very esteemed presidential son Hunter Biden, I did 50 hours of testimony before Congress for Russia, 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 which we all knew was always a lie if you weren't an idiot, right? But it didn't matter. It didn't stop him from doing so. Hunter can make millions, have $1 billion investment from the Chinese Communist Party. There's money going to the children and to the grandchildren and to the mistress and to the ex-wife and to the girlfriend that was also the brother's wife and, some pretty, let's just say, stuff that if it was Donald Trump Jr. would actually be a problem. That's just totally overlooked. And that's what's so critical about right now, guys. They want to put in whatever candidate they control. And that person is anyone other than Donald Trump. Okay, what we have the opportunity to do tonight is to end some of this nonsense fast. Okay, you see what's happening. Trump is winning the polls in Iowa by 9,476 points. Just stay home. That's what they want you to do. And then, if he wins, that's obviously a statistical impossible margin to win. It's out of 100, but that doesn't matter. They'll say, well, if there was one poll that we did, we polled one person, so it's 100%. So if you win by 99, they say, he underperformed incredibly. There's blood in the water. The billionaires from New York and the Democrats that are literally Democrat donors funding Nikki Haley will write bigger checks, so that then they can drag it out longer in New Hampshire. And then try to drag it out longer in South Carolina. You already see the Democrat vote in New Hampshire, like they're all trying to switch things so that they can vote for Nikki Haley to drag it out. Because if you drag it out, you know what it's about? Draining resources. Joe Biden, they got all of their billionaires funding this stuff. You have all of big tech funding it, all of the mainstream media just being total propagandists at this point. I mean, that's what we're up against. It's not our ideas versus theirs, and we're pretending we're playing the same game. We've been playing T-ball for 50 years while they're playing hardball, indoctrinating our children, pushing their trans ideology on 3-year-olds. Think of how insane some of the stuff we see is today. I mean, you'd think that, like, I'm waiting for Ashton Kutcher to jump out of, like, a cake and be like, you're being punked. No, you know what I mean? Like, I'm literally, like, I walk around, I'm like, there's got to be cameras in the ceiling. Like, I'm in the Truman Show. Like, I am a reality show that I don't even realize is a reality show, because there's no way that some of this stuff that's happening in this country right now could actually be happening. And again, the reason both sides are so desperately going after Donald Trump is he's the only guy who can actually stop it. He's the only guy that's a threat to that. It's why they'll unify and fight. Chris Christie, you saw the call, right? The hot mic moment with Chris Christie. Well, Nikki Haley's not going anywhere, but it's fine. And Ron DeSantis calls him to thank him for everything he's doing. So wait, a neocon like fat slob like Chris, like where you're thanking him? Like, beat the hell out of him in the debates, and now he's thanking him. You know why? Because they're all in on it, right? Chris Christie's hot mic moment caught him being like, and Ron was petrified of me as well, that he's worried I was going to endorse against him. Because it's not about actually winning, it's just about stopping Trump. Right? That should be as evident as literally anything that's out there. But if we set the right tone, if we set the right message, we can change so much of that right now. And it all starts in Iowa. So, I just want to thank you guys for participating in this process. I know it's brutal. I feel bad that it's been, they bombard you with the nonsense. I mean, so much. And that's the other one they'll say. Well, Trump did this. Just remember, Ron DeSantis has spent basically $200 million in a one-state campaign to try to you see okay, what do you think what's the ratio ads like DeSantis relative to Trump? Just like ridiculous, right? Like when you're getting bombarded with the crap. So that's the other one they'll use. So with $200 million spent, essentially a one-state campaign, right? Since last year of this time, they'll say, we spent 30. So, a minor fraction of that, relatively speaking, big deal, but they're looking for any narrative to drag it out and continue it on. So, when my father jokes, hey, show up at all costs, it's not just about Iowa. It's about setting the tone for the rest of this thing so that we can end this ridiculous primary now. We can stop the money flowing to the political consultants, who, by the way, took about 86% of that $200 million of Ron DeSantis, because guess what? Those guys, just as bad as the rhinos, right? Because they don't get paid if there's not an ongoing primary, right? Because we're not hiring them. So all the money stops. The grift is over. So they want to drag it out and they want to drag it on. Just understand, because it really at this point is, so much of what we're seeing is just a constant psyop. It's a barrage of nonsense. And we can send a very loud, clear message tonight so that we can end that, so that we can actually focus on what matters, so that we can go after the ridiculous and the failed policies that make up the Biden administration, but also the Democrat Party. Let's not give, I don't want to give him, it's not him. Like, no one actually believes that Joe Biden, who can't form a complete sentence, is coming up with this policy. But someone is. And he's dumb enough to sign off on everything. He's, by the way, doing all of the things Obama would have loved to have done, but Obama wasn't going to risk the $1 million speeches, $20 million home on Martha's Vineyard and stuff like that for actually doing these things. But who's the dumb, useful idiot who they'll throw under the bus, who will just sign whatever you put in front of him? Joe Biden, right? It's like Ron Burgundy. If you put it on the teleprompter, actually, it's worse than Ron Burgundy. If we're going to be serious, it's actually worse than Ron Burgundy, because at least Ron Burgundy could read the teleprompter. Joe Biden can screw that. I mean, we've seen it, right? It's not like once. It's like literally every time. That was, oh, Don, you're so terrible. Yeah, but no, but please, show me a time he's gotten it right. I remember during the Trump administration, well, he's walking down a wet and slippery ramp in the rain and ice and snow, and he held onto a railing, and every telepsychologist is out there. He must be in the later stages of dementia and Alzheimer's combined. It's not looking good, 25th Amendment. We have a guy, literally, if you got onto an airplane and Joe Biden was the pilot, how quickly would you walk off? Am I wrong? How about, would you let him even drive you in a car? Not even for the story. Yeah, someone's driving him, but you wouldn't do it. But he's making every decision or signing off on whoever it is that's putting them in front of them for our future. Every one of them has been an abject failure. The economy is going to crap. You see it. Inflation is destroying your worth, right? I get it. Hey, I'm not one of these guys pretending to be like, I'm the son of a billionaire from New York, and if I'm pissed off when I take my kids to a restaurant because I notice the change, because I notice how expensive it is, like, what's that do to someone working hard to live their American dream? What's left of it that hasn't been shipped off to China so that some billionaire that's funding Nikki Haley can save 2 cents on their widget? No, seriously. Like, I'm not supposed to notice that. It's probably not going to change my behavior patterns because I've been very blessed. I recognize that. But it's brutal. I had to maintain something for my ex-wife. Apartment and stuff like that, wasn't paying attention, interest rate reset on a 7-year arm or whatever it is, and it was like, oh my God, like just the change in interest alone. Well, what happens when other people's mortgages reset? Again, if it's like, whoa, sticker shock, not even a big mortgage, because, but a really palpable change. You combine that with the rest of the inflation we see in the grocery stores. You combine that with gas pricing. You combine that with the built-in inflation in other things between, again, interest rates. If I get a new truck, hey, if I want it, well, I'm blessed. I could go buy it with cash. Well, if someone's financing that truck and now you're paying 7% on top of that, plus, gas is 50% more expensive, plus, this is tens of thousands of dollars a year just to be neutral. And there's no end in sight because the policies continue to destroy those things because, again, they don't care. And they're more worried about taking care of those who are not actually Americans because they will more likely vote for them. When I see the stories, seriously, you see these things. Well, they're throwing New York kids out of their high school to house illegal immigrants. You see them. They threw an 85-year-old Korean War veteran out of his house to make room for, I'm like, wait a minute. Maine, what was it? Multi-million-dollar housing apartments for, now the government will write someone, the guy that owns the real estate's probably making plenty of money. Like, why don't we take that money and, like, maybe, I don't know, house some of our homeless, some of our veterans that actually need it? I mean, isn't it weird that there's almost not even, like, a consideration of that? It's been a problem forever. We started making that progress with the VA and doing these things. The low-income earners in this country under the Trump administration were actually doing better. They actually saw real wage growth, but that doesn't matter. I mean, every day, it's one big punk after another. So, I just really want to say thank you for all of the garbage commercials that you guys have had to endure over the last year. So, I look forward to tomorrow when you can get back to enjoying your lives. But in the meantime, take the next few hours to reach out to all of your friends, to get them out here. Listen, if my soft butt from Florida right now, it was different. When I lived in New York, it was a little bit different. I could handle the cold. Maybe not this, but like I was a lot harder, a lot tougher. If I can get up from Florida, even if I'm a little bit late, everyone can get out. We can do this. We can send the message, the shot across the bow that you need to not just the Democrats, Joe Biden, to their failed policies, but also to the rhinos that are also trying to stop those policies. And they, more importantly, will never actually implement these things that they're going to promise you, right? I'll say this with Trump, whether it's the embassy at Jerusalem, all the things they said you could never do. Peace in the Middle East. That was the holy grail of geopolitical politics for the last half a century, but no one could actually do anything about it because you just can't put an idiot into a position. You're going to negotiate with some of the largest countries in the world who don't see eye to eye on a lot, and you're going to make something happen. You've never negotiated a car lease, but you're going to get in there and you'll figure it out because you're an academic. The same academics that tell us there's 4,276 genders are the people deciding this. That a man, a biological male, can somehow magically breastfeed. Sorry, I apologize. Chest feed. Ma'am, I have to get this right, or these people in the media will crucify me if I don't get this right and acknowledge the appropriate genders. But this is where we're going. So we have the opportunity to stop all of that insanity tonight. So please, reach out to your friends, text them, call them, make sure they understand what's at stake. Because again, they're just looking for even if it's a win, just so we're clear, no one's ever won an Iowa caucus by more than 12 points, right? So then they say, well, Trump wins by 30 or 50, or it was an underperformance because they're looking for anything, and you can just see it, right? Like at this point, with all of the lies, you know, it's like all the other conspiracy theories, right? I said it a long time ago, said, hey, you know, everyone owes their conspiracy uncle, theorist uncle, a severe apology because he was actually far more right than any of the idiots in our mainstream media that was pushing the nonsense. But it also got to the point where it was so obvious that the lag, right? Everyone knew Russia was nonsense, but they kept the narrative out there, and they were able to drag that out for like 3 years, and then other stuff took a little bit like, now it's like they put something out there, and you know, like 6 minutes later, it's going to be proven wrong because no one has any faith in those institutions because then they continue to fail you. But we have the chance to send that message tonight, and I really hope that you guys will help us do that. So thank you so much for being here today, and we just really appreciate all of you guys. Hey. Okay. We got any questions? I'm that good? Yes, ma'am. Can we come to the watch party tonight? You know, I have no idea. Like logistically, I'm just scrambling around. I got to go speak at a caucus location and go do that. But you know, I have no issue with it. I just don't know how to make that happen. But we can talk to some of the team here and see what we can do. Yes, sir. Okay. Listen. Hey, Princess, you ready for this? Listen, you never know. Listen, I don't want to say no because then if you decide to do it, like, oh my God, he's a major liar. You know, people, the reality is this, like, I never needed this, right? It wasn't, but I believe in it. I've been a lifelong conservative. I do this. I see where it's going. My mother escaped communist Czechoslovakia, but sent me there every summer as a kid for a couple of weeks, like during communism. So like, I saw it, and whether it was intentional or not, it was like a foundation for my political beliefs. You know, I went to boarding school in like central Pennsylvania, but in like a Rust Belt town that was the home of Firestone tires and like Mrs. Smith's pies, and I saw like what these just like formerly great, you know, industrial sites that are just sitting there rotting and vacant and empty. Like, you know, I got it. So I'm an unlikely person to understand these things, but just sort of by dumb luck, it fell into there. So, you know, I've become pretty passionate about it. I mean, I go do this. I've made it my life, and I promise you, it was much easier being a real estate developer from New York City. You didn't, you know, I got invited to the cool person parties, and you know, it didn't matter. You know, once you take this stance, they'll go after you that way. So, I guess the answer is I will continue to fight no matter what. The question is, do you want the day job of actually doing it? When I look at some of these morons in Congress, I'm like, you know, I'm going to sit there with 435 of these congressmen. I'm like, well, no, not because I'm not, but like I almost feel like I can do more outside of that. I don't have to play by the rules. Again, I'm not Hunter Biden. I actually have to play by the rules. So if I'm on the outside of that system and I don't, you know, I don't get paid to do it, I'm not partaking, I think I can do a lot more, and then I can focus on helping a couple other people. That would be awesome. So it's a great compliment that you'd even ask. I truly understand that, but you actually have to make sure you want both. There's too many of the people that they do that, then they show up, and they barely do anything, and they don't actually effectuate change. So I just want to make sure no matter what I'm doing that I'm actually effectuating change. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, man. Got anything else? Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, for us, we're glad to do it. You know, my father's the only person on either side that it wasn't the natural progression. It wasn't the next thing. And, you know, I've told the story. I wrote about it in my book. But back in, I guess it was June 16, 2015, when my father announced, you know, before he went down the escalator, we sort of took the elevator down from his office collectively. Then we split off, and he came down the escalator with Melania to make the opening announcement. And it was sort of amazing because it was pretty profound. The last thing he said to me was he just looked me right in the eyes and he goes, and now we find out who our real friends are. Which was, by the way, I didn't even fully get it at the time. Now, in hindsight, I was like, it was two things. A, it showed he understood how the real world works. You know, unlike the bureaucrats who've never really, again, the reason they don't get deals done is because they've never actually negotiated something. You know, they're negotiating trillion-dollar transactions the first time out of the gate, which is why they fail every time. It's why we get played by China every time, because they have someone that's brilliant doing it. We have a bureaucrat, or we have a congressman that's elected every 2 years just desperately trying to get elected again. But more importantly than that he got it was that he saw it before he did anything. He knew what was going to happen anyway, and he kept going. And he did it despite that. Again, he had a pretty good life. He had it pretty easy. He was, as you know, if you go back and look at the quotes, all the people that are haters, I actually did a book about it called Letters to Trump, which is all the letters from all the haters, basically, who are haters now, no children, kissing his ass over the last 40 years. But now it's different. You put a little Republican next to your name, even if you deliver for your people, it's the Antichrist. It's all nonsense. So that was perhaps more important, was that he did it anyway. And again, that's, I guess, how I look at it. You know, you got to do it anyway. I have 5 young kids. I promise you, my existence was much easier before. But you got to do it because, you know, I want to actually leave them a country that they recognize and that we'd recognize. And right now, we're not on that track. Well, that's not for me to decide, right? There's a higher power that decides that. But you know, listen, I'll say he's fought for this country, and he's taken on you know, forces that probably no one else has, certainly in modern history. And I think he's delivered accordingly. But no, that's not one for me to decide, because that's the one that gets me in trouble if I. but I actually genuinely mean that. You know, there's certainly something interesting of someone that can come from that, right? I mean, to go, just think of the odds, right? To go from being a real estate guy to this, to winning the presidency right out. I mean, he understood, but more importantly, just so much of it was so likely. I mean, how's the brash billionaire from New York? How's he going to, you know, relate to regular people? But his whole life was about that. He was a better real estate guy because he spent time on construction sites. He wasn't the guy up in a, you know, he had a pretty nice office, but he'd get down there on the weekends. I remember as a kid, man, dating myself now, but 20s, coming out of school, working for him, you know, I'd get the call at like, 5, 6 in the morning on a Saturday. Now, I was probably, may have had a little bit of a hangover. Early 20s, Saturday, 5. Hey, Don, why aren't you in the office? Me being a smartass, why aren't you in the office? He's like, I am in the office, and you're not in it. That's why I know you're not here. I'm like, that didn't work out so well. And then you spend the rest of the day working on and traveling on a job site, and he talked to the guys, and he had that connection with the guys that were union workers, that because he was actually going to figure out the efficiency of a building or an HVAC system, or how to salvage a little bit of ceiling height in a space to make it better by talking to the guys who were actually doing it. Not like the consultant class. Well, we can save 2 cents by offshoring all of our. That's Pete Buttigieg. Work for McKinsey or one of these things, right? No, it's like what happened with Boeing, right? Boeing was an incredible American company. Then one of these Pete Buttigieg sort of consultant types, who's never actually built a plane or anything like that, but they consult on how to save 2 cents. We'll just offshore it. We'll save 2 cents, and now Boeing's doors are falling off in the middle of flight. Like, it's minor details. Seems like a big deal, but again, I'm not allowed to say that, because if it was done by a DEI hire or something like that, then I'm a terrible human being, and I'm every ist you can imagine, and so. But that's the reality. So there was a difference. I thought sort of East Palestine in Ohio when the disaster happened. I mean, it's been a year later. Joe Biden still hasn't bothered to come. Well, because they're probably likely Trump voters, so forget them. Forget them. We can import so many more from Latin America and just put them on a program, and they'll definitely vote for us. I mean, there's literally more illegal immigrants coming across our border now on an annualized basis than there are babies born in America. Well, they wanted to be, they're importing their voter base. And up until about a week ago, when it became obvious to even the lunatics on the left that, that great replacement theory, I know, you're not allowed to say that. I'm like, well, what else is it? It's not a theory. They're obviously doing that. Of course they've been talking about that. They've been talking about doing that in Texas forever, right? Now it's just the rest of the country that they're trying to implement it. That's not racist. It's just statistics and fact. It's math. But math is racist too. We were learning that in schools. And, but if you're the DEI person who's selected to be the president of Harvard and you get caught plagiarizing almost 50% of the papers you've ever written, well, how dare you? I'm like, well, if I was at Harvard, they'd throw me out in 2 seconds. So you can't answer a simple question. Is it against Harvard policies to call for the death of people in Israel? To cheer the murder and rape of young women and girls in the streets? Like, you can't say that's bad. You can't say that's against the violation because God forbid we offend the person who thinks that's okay. Who are we coddling in this country anymore? It's certainly not Americans. It's certainly not people who are working hard to try to get ahead. It's everyone else. So, again, probably been trying to close this thing out for a couple minutes here, but there's so much more. It never ends. I could go on for 3 hours, and unlike some of the other guys, I don't need backup or this. I don't need notes. Right? It's not that hard, but it is for our people because they don't have that, and that's, I think, again, what's unique about Trump. He just gets it. You see it. And if we stop being afraid to actually say what's going on, if we become unafraid, we can actually fix things. But it's, I say, oh, really supporting your father. I'm like, you're allowed to say that. No, but we've been being, no, well, you're not allowed to say, like, basic facts. You can't say those things anymore. There's a consequence to that. There's a penalty. When one guy, whether it's the president of the United States, my father, you send him out there, you put him out, hey, most powerful guy in the world, by himself, they'll take him out. You saw what they did, right? Oh, no, Joe Biden. Joe Biden did so much better than Barack Obama in 2008, right? He the most popular president ever. The most popular president ever cannot find his way off a stage. I'm not sure I believe that, folks, but, if you do, you're probably a liberal. But it doesn't matter because they keep winning. Now, you get 150, 175 million Americans actually willing to speak up, willing to stand by basic logic and reason. We win, right? But they don't make it easy. If you were a doctor and said, hey, the Wuhan lab leak theory is probably the most plausible scientific theory in the history of science. How dare you? You lose your funding, Fauci will cut you off, you'll get thrown out of Harvard Medical School for stating the obvious. Of course it came from there. Like, you don't have to be an epidemiologist. You don't have to be a virologist to be like, no. It probably didn't come from 3 feet outside of the lab that studies the exact virus in question in the town that was ground zero for the pandemic. Like, it was always the most plausible, but it didn't matter. People were beaten into submission. They were beaten into silence. There were consequences to being vocal. We have to stop that crap, and we have to all start speaking up, and if we do, we win. It's that simple. If we don't, you see what they're trying. I mean, the pendulum has overcorrected so much. There is a point of no return where you don't get your country back. You don't get your freedoms back. You think I'm joking, though? They're like, look at the people we thought were like us. Canada, New Zealand, United Kingdom, where they'll throw you in jail for 2 years for misgendering someone. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your beard was a little bit longer, ma'am, than I thought, and therefore I assumed you were a man. Now, they can call for the death of Jews in the streets and no problem. That's fine. That's 100% right. That's not hate speech, but misgendering someone who's clearly a biological male, 2 years. Ireland. Remember Conor McGregor? He said, hey, Irish lives matter. Huh? Who would have thought? Who would have thought Irish lives could possibly matter in Ireland? It's shocking to me. But they're doing these things. There was a survey today. A lot of people in Canada are worried that if Donald Trump gets elected, it could be the end of democracy. And I'm like, Canada, who were shutting down the bank accounts of peaceful protesters. They were locking up truckers who did that. Canada, who just eliminated most of your firearms. Forced vaccinations. Not exactly what we call a bastion of freedom and liberty. It's only a bastion of freedom and liberty if you're insane enough to go along with all of the insanity that they push. Look at New Zealand with the lockdowns. Like, we're the last man standing, and it's already pretty bad. So that's why, again, it's why I am so passionate about it. It's why I'm here, because it'd be a lot easier, frankly, to not be. It'd be a lot easier to not, go back to New York, build buildings, focus on the stuff that we have, leave it alone. But we got to fight for it because we believe it, because it's worth it. Our Constitution's worth it. Our children are worth it. And our future is worth it. So thank you guys for being a part of that. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Okay, so, hey guys, sorry for the unusual format tonight. Just on the road, got disastrous delays. Just trying to get to Iowa. It's about -1. So just thank you guys always for tuning in. If you have friends in Iowa, make sure they're turning out to the Iowa caucuses. Just make sure they get out and vote. You see what they're trying to do. You probably heard me speaking about it ad nauseum. Also, thanks our great sponsors, Patriot Mobile, as well as Goldco, for sponsoring the show and having the guts to actually do that. Those guys are the best. Check them out. You can see the links down below. We'll be back throughout the night with a bunch of stuff, and we'll have some fun. But in the meantime, thanks. Take the time now. Text message all of your friends. Have them show up. Caucus for Trump tonight in Iowa. Let's end this thing once and for all. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys in a little bit.